Listen closely to the battlefield of the 41st Millennium. Beneath the deafening roar of orbital bombardments and the dying screams of shattered worlds, there's a quieter, far more sinister sound. It is the wet, sickening crunch of bone violently giving way to grinding steel. It is the sound of biology being forcefully rewritten by a chaotic anomaly. Now, ask yourself a chilling question. What happens when the weapon you wield decides it no longer wants to be hell, but wants to consume you from the outside in? Imagine looking down at your hands that have faithfully waged war across the stars for centuries, only to see the cold plasteel of your bolter melting into your ceramite gauntlet. The metal does not just fuse with your armor. It burrows deeper, sinking parasitic, metallic tendrils directly into your bloodstream. You try to drop the weapon in a moment of pure panic, but your fingers are already gone, seamlessly replaced by the firing mechanism. The gun is eating you alive, and your own body is eagerly assisting in the feast. This is not a fleeting nightmare born from the war. This is the grotesque, everyday reality of the Obliterator Virus, a techno-daemonic plague that transforms the galaxy's proudest warriors into groaning, walking arsenals of living fleshmetal. If you are fascinated by the darkest, most twisted corners of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, where cursed technology and sorcery breed pure agony, make sure to subscribe and forge your alliance with the silent Imperium. Hit the bell icon, because today, we are descending into the ultimate body horror. To become an obliterator is to suffer a fate infinitely worse than death on the battlefield. It is an eternity of agonizing torment where your consciousness is trapped within a suffocating prison of your own weaponized anatomy. You are no longer a revered space marine, nor are you a pristine machine of the Mechanicus. You are a biological forge, eternally burning with a fever of daemonic data, constantly shifting and tearing your own flesh to birth new munitions. The transformation is absolute, the pain is everlasting, and there is no cure. To understand this nightmare, you must first look into the abyss of the Horus heresy, to the darkest corners of the Eye of Terror where the laws of physics go to die. The Obliterator Virus was not born in a sterile laboratory, nor is it a simple biological pathogen. It is a profane marriage between the sorcery of the war and the forbidden technologies of the Dark Mechanicum. It is a techno-daemonic sickness, a sentient scrap code designed to corrupt both flesh and steel simultaneously. Consider the nature of this plague. It does not merely infect your cells. It infects your armor's machine spirit, your weapons, and your very soul. When a space marine is exposed to this war-born anomaly, often through corrupted data streams, demonic pacts, or prolonged existence within chaotic forges, a terrifying synthesis begins. The virus acts as a twisted translator, rewriting the genetic code of a superhuman to speak the binary language of war engines. Historically, no legion has suffered and embraced this curse more deeply than the Iron Warriors. Under the cold, calculating gaze of their Primarch, Perturbo, these masters of siege warfare always viewed their bodies as secondary to their war gear. They amputated healthy limbs to install bionics, seeking the cold certainty of steel over the weakness of flesh. This arrogant obsession made them the perfect, most fertile soil for the Obliterator Virus to take root and flourish. But how does this techno-heresy actually claim you? It rarely begins with a violent mutation. Instead, it is insidious. Imagine returning from a grueling campaign, your armor battered and your bolter scorched. You head to the armory to disengage your war plate, but the neural interface cables in your spine refuse to release. You feel a strange, pulsing warmth radiating not from your own heart, but from the plasma core of the weapon in your hands. Now, imagine the dawning horror as you try to force the release rites. You pull at the ceramite gauntlet, only to scream in blinding agony as you realize you are tearing your own skin. The armor is no longer a shell. It has molecularly bonded with your epidermis, your veins have begun to intertwine with the power cables of your suit. The boundaries between the Astartes and his wargear are dissolving, replaced by a sickening, mutating compound known as fleshmetal. You might think amputation is the answer. A desperate warrior might take a chainsword to his own infected arm, hoping to sever the corruption before it reaches his heart. But the virus is intelligent, and it is cruel. If you cut away the infected limb, the scrap code violently reacts to the trauma. From the bloody, spurting stun, bone and muscle will instantaneously knit with nearby shrapnel, rapidly extruding a heavy flimmer or a rotary cannon directly from your shattered skeleton. There is no escaping the genesis of this transformation. Once the techno-daemonic infection breaches the blood-brain barrier, it rewrites your nervous system to perceive ammunition, sustenance, and weaponry as vital organs. The genesis of an obliterator is finally complete when the host stops fighting the horrific assimilation and realizes, with a shattered mind, that the only way to alleviate the agonizing pain is to let the weapons grow. Now, let us dissect the anatomy of this damned affliction. The Obliterator Virus is not a disease you can fight with an enhanced Astartes immune system. It is a fundamental rewriting of reality at the cellular level. When the scrap code enters the bloodstream, the gene seed, the very essence of a space marine superhuman biology, is violently corrupted. It is forced to recognize plasteel, ceramite, and promethium as vital biological components, indistinguishable from bone, muscle, and blood. Consider the terrifying implications of this internal betrayal. Your os medulla, the organ responsible for reinforcing your skeleton, begins to weave adamantium directly into your bones. But this is not an upgrade. It is a chaotic, uncontrolled group. The bones thicken, warp, and splinter, bursting through your flesh in jagged metallic spikes. Your skeleton becomes a chaotic scaffolding, meant not to support a humanoid form, but to serve as the chassis for heavy artillery. As the virus progresses, the boundary between organic tissue and synthetic material completely evaporates, birthing a horrific substance known as fleshmetal. This cursed material is alive. It is a pulsating, meat-like metal that breathes and bleeds. If you were to cut an obliterator, you would not see a clean separation of muscle and armor. You would see a grotesque marbling of synthetic fibers, writhing veins and duct, early plasma pumping rhythmically beneath a cold, iron-like skin. Imagine the agonizing sensory overload as your nervous system attempts to process this. The nerve endings in your skin do not die. They multiply, embedding themselves into the cold metal of your weapons. You feel every scratch on your armor as if it were a knife across your bare chest. The heat of a plasma coil charging feels like your own heart is caught in a roaring furnace, burning you alive from the inside out, endlessly. But the true horror lies deep within the circulatory system. Your secondary heart begins to pump not just genetically enhanced blood, but highly volatile chemical propellants and liquid coolants. Your pores no longer sweat. Instead, they constantly weep thick, black machine oil and caustic lubricants, essential to keep the grinding gears of your mutating joints from tearing themselves apart. You are a living engine, and your body is struggling desperately to manage its own chaotic exhaust. But what if the virus did not just change your organs, but repurposed them for war? Look deep into the bone marrow of an infected host. It no longer produces red blood cells to carry oxygen. Instead, it becomes a microscopic manufacturer. The marrow absorbs raw and vital nutrients from the host's ruined body, synthesizing them into solid slug ammunition, explosive micro-rockets, and razor-sharp shrapnel, ready to be fed directly into the emerging weapon systems. This is the sickness of steel and soul. It is a biological imperative twisted by the warp to demand constant, destructive output. Your lungs, once capable of filtering out the most toxic atmospheres, are heavily modified by the virus. They expand, merging with your chest cavity to act as massive biological bellows, drawing in air not to breathe, but to feed the combustion chambers of the heavy flamers growing rapidly from your forearms. Think about the immense caloric and mineral cost of this transformation. Flesh metal cannot simply materialize from nothing. It requires raw mass. The virus aggressively cannibalizes the host's own non-essential organs. Your digestive tract is warped into a hyperacidic furnace, capable of breaking down raw battlefield debris, and even the armor of your fallen brothers. You are cursed with an eternal, gnawing hunger for iron, brass, and depleted uranium to fuel your endless mutations. The mental toll of this physical violation is unimaginable. The Space Marine's brain is flooded with aggressive scrap code, endless streams of targeting telemetry, and the chaotic whispers of the war. Every thought is drowned out by the mechanical grinding of your own bones and the hissing of your pressurized blood. You cannot sleep. You cannot rest, because the biological forge within you never stops hammering, never stops twisting your anatomy into new, more efficient instruments of death. This constant state of metamorphosis means an obliterator has no fixed anatomy. Today, your right arm might be a humming Lascanon, drawing power directly from your agonizingly overcharged nervous system. Tomorrow, the flesh metal might boil and shift, violently dissolving the energy weapon to extrude a spinning assault cannon in its place. The virus dictates your form based on the immediate needs of the battlefield, treating your conscious mind as an irrelevant bystander to your own mutation. It is a parasitic relationship where the parasite is your own warped potential for violence. The weapons do not just attach to you, they grow from you like malignant, metallic tumors. You feel the birth of every new barrel, the painful routing of every new ammunition feed as it burrows through your abdominal cavity. The guns are your children, born of your suffering, and they constantly scream for release, demanding to be fired to relieve the pressure building within your mutated flesh. Some ignorant souls believe that obliterators are merely cyborgs, similar to the tech priests of Mars. But this is a fundamental misunderstanding of the techno-heresy. A tech priest amputates flesh to install a clean, logical machine. An obliterator is a victim of a chaotic synthesis where the machine is inherently demonic. The flesh metal is not a tool. It is a sentient prison, a living cage of iron and agony that actively hates the organic soul it has enslaved. Ultimately, the Obliterator Virus destroys the very concept of the self. The warrior who once swore oaths of brotherhood and fought for honor is slowly crushed beneath the weight of his own monstrous arsenal. He becomes nothing more than a delivery system for the warp's hatred, a pathetic, towering abomination of screaming metal and bleeding flesh. The soul is suffocated by the steel, leaving behind only the cold and feeling logic of absolute annihilation. This is the profound tragedy of the sickness. You are granted the ultimate firepower, the ability to manifest any weapon you desire, but at the cost of everything that made you a living being. You are the apex predator of the battlefield, yet you are the most helpless victim of the war. Trapped inside a shell of mutated ceramite, you are a prisoner of war, eternally tortured by the very weapons you once proudly carried into battle. Step inside the mind of the afflicted. Imagine the exact moment the assimilation reaches its horrifying climax. You are no longer observing a mutation. You are trapped within it. Your ceramite armor, once a sacred second skin, is now a suffocating coffin that refuses to open. You feel the flesh metal weaving through your muscles, replacing your tendons with industrial cabling. The air inside your helmet tastes of rust and coagulated blood, a sickening prelude to the violent rebirth about to consume your physical form. The pain defies all mortal comprehension. You feel a massive pressure building beneath your ribcage, a chaotic mass of bone and steel aggressively expanding. It is an assault cannon, gestating like a metallic parasite inside your chest cavity. You scream as your sternum cracks, the jagged bone violently pushed aside to make way for the spinning barrels. The flesh tears, not with a clean cut, but with the wet, agonizing sound of organic matter giving way to relentless and caring machinery. As you endure this grotesque metamorphosis, the realization dawns that there is no salvation, only a descent into eternal suffering. If you find yourself captivated by this dark exploration of the 41st Millennium's most horrific truths, pause and join our ranks. Subscribe to the silent Imperium and hit the notification bell. We plunge into the abyss of Warhammer 40K lore every week, decoding the grim reality of a galaxy where flesh is merely fuel for the eternal war. Now, let us return to the torment. But the physical agony is only the beginning of the nightmare. Soon, a new, unnatural sensation overrides the pain, an insatiable, blinding hunger. This is not the noble gene seed's demand for sustenance. This is the virus rewriting your primal instincts. You look down at the shattered remains of a battlefield, and your warped mind no longer sees debris. It sees a feast. The twisted scrap code within your brain commands you to feed, creating a horrific psychological compulsion to consume more dead metal. You fall to your knees, your mutated hands violently scooping up spent artillery shells, shattered armor plating, and rusted shrapnel. You shove the jagged debris into your mouth, your reinforced teeth shattering the ceramite while your jaw muscles tear under the strain. The taste of cold iron and toxic promethium floods your senses, yet it feels like the most exquisite nourishment. Your throat, lined with newly formed plasteel scales, forcefully swallows the razor-sharp fragments down into a violently mutating digestive tract. You are no longer digesting food. Your stomach has become a hyperacidic smelting furnace. You can feel the metal boiling inside you, dissolving into raw slurry that is immediately pumped back into your bone marrow to forge fresh ammunition. This is the ultimate, grotesque paradox of the Obliterator. To sustain the heavy weaponry erupting from your flesh, you must constantly cannibalize the war zone round you, trapped in an endless, sickening cycle of eating the battlefield to shoot it back out. As the raw materials process within you, the sheer trauma of the act begins to fracture your once indomitable Astartes mind. The proud warrior who recited oaths of loyalty is systematically erased, replaced by the primal, localized intelligence of a walking weapons platform. Your thoughts are fragmented, interrupted by the relentless, clicking telemetry of targeting augers and the hissing pressure of ammunition feeds routing through your spine. The virus isolates your consciousness, burying you beneath layers of screeching scrap code. You try to hold onto a memory, the face of a brother, the golden light of terror, or even the cold logic of Perturbo. But the flesh metal aggressively overrides these neural pathways. It demands total focus on the trajectory of the next shot, the heat sinks of your plasma coils, and the endless, screaming hunger for more iron. The assimilation is finally complete when you forget how to weep, because your tear ducts have been repurposed to bleed sacred machine oil. In this absolute submission, the metamorphosis stabilizes into a permanent state of flux. You are a biological anomaly, a living engine of destruction tethered to the winds of the war. The man is dead, and the Obliterator is born, ready to unleash a hellish payload upon the very galaxy he once sought to conquer. You are now the archenemy's ultimate tool, a prisoner of war locked inside your own agonizingly weaponized anatomy. When you view an Obliterator from the outside, they appear to be the terrifying pinnacle of martial evolution. Across the chaotic war bands of the archenemy, cultists and even lesser space marines often revere these towering monstrosities as living avatars of destruction. They are worshipped as the ultimate culmination of the long war, beings who have successfully transcended the limitations of both mortal flesh and standard issue war gear. But consider this, is absolute lethality truly a form of ascension? The great paradox of their existence lies in the illusion of absolute power. An Obliterator can manifest a twin-linked glass cannon, a heavy flamer, or a screaming assault cannon with a mere bloody thought. They are walking arsenals capable of shattering heavily fortified Imperial bunkers or atomizing entire squads of guardsmen in seconds. Yet, this godlike firepower completely masks a pathetic underlying truth. They do not truly wield these weapons, the weapons wield them. A true warrior, no matter how deeply corrupted by the whispers of the war, still retains a sliver of conscious agency. A Chaos Lord chooses his targets, plots his cruel strategies, and actively revels in the glory of the kill. The afflicted Obliterator possesses none of this intellectual freedom. Their mind is a shattered mirror, reflecting only the violent, localized imperatives of the scrap code infecting their brain. They are simply living triggers waiting to be pulled. Now imagine the bitter irony, particularly for the Iron Warriors who so eagerly embraced this techno-daemonic play. They sought to flawlessly subjugate the machine, to make the galaxy bend to their cold, mechanical will. Instead, they become the ultimate slaves to the very technology they worship. In their arrogant quest to become the perfect masters of siege warfare, they permanently reduced themselves to mindless siege engines, entirely stripped of the intellect required to appreciate their victories. If you were to walk the dark holes of a Chaos Strike cruiser, you would not see them respected as veteran battle brothers. You would find them chained in the deepest, most heavily shielded cargo bays, treated as dangerous, unpredictable ordnance rather than living beings. They are fed raw scrap metal and volatile plasma like monstrous beasts, only unleashed when a warlord requires a blunt and thinking instrument of absolute, overwhelming devastation. So, what does it actually mean to be the ultimate arsenal? It means you are undoubtedly the most dangerous entity on the battlefield, yet you hold absolutely no power over your own destiny. You are a biological puppet, animated by a viral intelligence that only understands the cold arithmetic of slaughter. The paradox is complete and agonizing. In achieving the physical capacity to destroy anything in their path, the Obliterator has entirely destroyed themselves. Picture the battlefield from the desperate perspective of an Imperial guard. You are holding the defensive line, your lascan trembling in your hands. Suddenly, the air itself screams as the warp forcefully tears open. This is how the archenemy deploys their walking artillery. They do not march into battle in disciplined ranks. They are violently vomited from the Imperium directly into the heart of your formations through deep strike teleportation. The sickening stench of ozone and roasting meat precedes them. As the teleport flare fades, you see towering hulks of fleshmetal, dripping with foul condensation and warp slime. They do not issue intimidating battle cries or coordinate tactical commands. Instead, you hear a nauseating, wet mechanical grinding as their bodies autonomously assess the immediate threats around them. Their twisted minds calculate optimal kill vectors, and their bodies instantly begin the agonizing process of giving birth to the perfect weapons. Imagine witnessing this grotesque biological adaptation in real time. If you and your terrified squad are clustered together in a narrow trench, the Obliterator's flesh metal aggressively ripples and bulges. A heavy flamer nozzle forcefully extrudes from its massive forearm, tearing through its own muscle and bone to brutally lock into place. It unleashes a blinding torrent of alchemical fire before you can even aim your weapon. The virus recognized a soft, clustered infantry target and rapidly formulated the most brutally efficient, agonizing solution. But what if a heavily armored Leman Russ battle tank suddenly rolls over the nearby ridge? The Obliterator does not panic, nor does it retreat to find Antom as support. Instead, you watch in sheer, paralyzing horror as the heavy flamer is violently sucked back into the mutating, bloody flesh. In its place, the flesh metal violently boils, extruding the twin, glowing coils of a heavy lascanon or a multi-melter directly from its shoulder, drawing raw, blinding energy from the beast's overcharged, agonizing biological reactor. This hyper-adaptive lethality is exactly what makes them the ultimate terror troops of the traitor legions. They are not limited by vulnerable supply lines or delayed ammunition drops. As they wade through the unimaginable slaughter, their hyperacidic digestive systems actively consume the wreckage of the very vehicles they just destroyed. They eat the scorched metal and instantly forge fresh plasma cells and solid slug rounds within their corrupted bone marrow, sustaining an endless, deafening barrage of localized destruction. For the mortal guardsmen facing this nightmare, there is absolutely no tactical counterplay. You are fighting a localized, walking extinction event. Their thick, constantly regenerating flesh metal armor effortlessly absorbs standard loss fire, the shallow wounds instantly sealing with hardened scar tissue and bubbling plasteel. You watch your comrades' desperate shots bounce harmlessly off a creature that defies all natural logic. A towering monster that bleeds dark engine oil and screams with the metallic voice of a dying forge. Yet, in the midst of this absolute slaughter, consider the profoundly tragic reality of the entity trapped beneath the guns. As the Obliterator mechanically annihilates an entire platoon, the shattered remnants of the original Astartes mind are trapped in the passenger seat of their own mutating body. They feel the agonizing, bone-shattering recoil of every single shot rattling their twisted spine. They feel the searing, unbearable heat of the plasma coils burning their own flesh from the inside out. Their deployment on the battlefield is not a glorious engagement. It is merely a temporary release of agonizing pressure. The warlords of chaos unleash them simply to relieve the agonizing buildup of ammunition and volatile warp energy constantly festering within their flesh metal bodies. They kill not for the dark glory of the ruinous powers, but because the viral scrap code fiercely demands it. They are deployed to vomit their endless suffering onto the galaxy. A relentless artillery barrage born entirely of inescapable pain. Now, let us look beyond the shattered armor and the smoking barrels and peer into the true abyss of this curse. The greatest tragedy of the Obliterator Virus is not the grotesque disfigurement of the physical form, but the agonizing death of the mind. The transition from a proud, conscious warrior to a mindless, biological artillery piece is a slow, suffocating process of ego death. You are systematically erased from within. Consider the profound horror of lingering awareness. The techno-daemonic virus does not instantly lobotomize its host. Instead, it slowly crushes your psyche under the deafening, mechanical roar of the infecting scrap code. For centuries, a tiny, fractured spark of the original Space Marine remains trapped deep within the cerebral cortex. You possess just enough consciousness to realize exactly what you have become, to feel the profound shame and the inescapable agony, but absolutely no power to stop the endless slaughter. Imagine the agonizing erosion of your own identity, your cherished memories of brotherhood, of martial honor, and of the grueling campaigns fought under the banner of your Primarch begin to rot. They are aggressively overwritten by targeting telemetry, optimal firing arcs, and the cold, binary logic of ballistics. You slowly forget your own name. You forget the faces of your battle brothers. The only thoughts that remain are the insatiable hunger for raw iron and the desperate need to kill. But what if the mind finally shatters completely? Eventually, the human soul buckles under the sheer, agonizing weight of the flesh metal. The conscious you finally dies, leaving behind only primal, localized imperatives. The Obliterator becomes a creature of pure, agonizing instinct. There is no grand strategy, no dark devotion to the chaos gods, and no lingering desire for galactic conquest. There is only the agonizing pressure of munitions building within the mutated flesh and the violent, temporary relief of unleashing them. You have achieved a dark, twisted immortality, but it is an eternity spent as a prisoner of war within your own cursed biology. Your body is a masterpiece of daemonic engineering, capable of withstanding unimaginable punishment and dealing apocalyptic destruction. Yet, the pilot of this godlike machine is nothing more than a screaming, localized fragment of a broken mind. The flesh metal is the ultimate prison, a cage with no walls, no boss, and absolutely no hope of escape or redemption. This is the profound philosophical terror of the Obliterator. They are the living embodiment of the warp's ultimate cruelty. A stark reminder that in the grim darkness of the far future, there are fates far worse than simply dying on the battlefield. To lose your life in combat is a tragic honor, but to lose your mind, your agency, and your very humanity, only to be repurposed as a mindless, suffering gun, is the ultimate, inescapable damnation. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the pursuit of ultimate power always demands a soul in return. The Obliterator Virus is the archenemy's most cruel joke, a profound techno-heresy that grants absolute lethality while entirely stripping away the warrior who wields it. They are not the apex predators of the traitor legions. They are tragic, groaning monuments to the horrific consequences of embracing the war, trapped within a prison of screaming fleshmetal. The mantra of the Iron Warriors is iron within, iron without. But for the afflicted, this battle cry becomes an agonizing, literal reality. There is no glory in their endless slaughter, no dark favor earned from the chaos gods. There is only the agonizing pressure of gestating weaponry, the sickening hunger for raw scrap, and the absolute death of the conscious mind. To become an obliterator is to become the gun itself, eternally fired by the uncaring hands of chaos. If you have survived this plunge into the abyss of Warhammer 40,000 lore, cement your place within our ranks. Subscribe to the Silent Imperium. Leave a like on this video, and tell me in the comments below, which horrifying aspect of the Grimdark universe should we decode next? Until then, beware the whispers of the war, and never let your weapons consume your soul.